Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's eSpeaks, we're talking about cybersecurity and how to best strategize to protect your company's data in a world where that has gotten harder and harder. To discuss that, I'm joined by Matt Waxman, Senior Vice President and General Manager of Data Protection at Veritas. Matt, happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday, James. Great to be here.
So I want to ask what Veritas does. Of course, it's a very well-known company, so many people already know what it does, but can you give us the kind of the 10, 15-second elevator pitch about what Veritas does for other companies?
Yeah, I mean, Veritas has been around for several decades now. We serve over 80,000 customers globally. And our focus is really solving the challenges that exist around data, from protecting it to securing it to governing it. It's really all about resilience these days. So if you think anything about resilience, whether that's natural disasters, cyber related, so on and so forth, think Veritas. That's the easiest way to frame it.
Gotcha. Okay, so maybe you're saying you're ransomware, and you're like stuck in a ransomware situation. That would be hopefully you have Veritas on your team at that point.
Hopefully you
Yeah.
do. And in all likelihood, with over 90% of the Fortune 100 using us, you probably do have us in some form in your environment already.
All right. So obviously you're very close to the market. I'd love to get your sense. I mean, as you survey the cybersecurity, data protection market, what's a big current trend driving things these days?
Well, I think there isn't a day that passes without a ransomware headline out there. So we're past the hype cycle in terms of, hey, ransomware is a big problem. Now we're into the details of like, how do you actually build resilience into your organization, knowing that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you'd actually have an event. So, you look at things like AI. What is AI doing? It's powering a massive boom when it comes to productivity and all different aspects of the environment outside of data, right? But you also look at it on the other side of things when it comes to cyber. You have AI-driven solutions that are helping to create better phishing emails, that are creating new malware variants and so forth. That's powering a whole new generation of ransomware attacks that we're going to see here, over the coming months and years going forward. So that's certainly a big trend that is going to start emerging, and we'll see more and more. Which again means that we just have to get better collectively from the data, the infrastructure, the systems, the cyber technologies together to really go and solve this problem.
On that question of AI, it really does seem like it's a race between the bad guys and the good guys, because of course the bad guys definitely have artificial intelligence, which as you point out, their attacks are going to be smarter, and they may get smarter over time. To me, it seems like that sort of it boosts the stakes of the arms race, so to speak, in that if you're not properly protected, staying whole, staying protected against an AI-led attack is going to get really tough in the years ahead.
I think it will, and look, I'll put this out here. We could probably imagine a day when there's going to be autonomous ransomware attacks, right? Where you're just going to have, it's a game of numbers, right? And you're just going to program like you get robocallers calling you.
Right.
You're just going to get a whole bunch of attacks that are looking for the odds to play out in their favor, and they're going to get smarter and smarter over time. So yeah, it creates a big challenge, I think, for all the organizations out there, small and large.
Well, the good news is that there's an Algerian prince who emailed me, and he's going to give me a lot of money if I just send him a small amount ahead of time. So I'm in pretty good shape financially. Just want to share that with you, by the way.
Yes, I think we've all had some of those emails, and they certainly can get under your skin. And for the right audience, they will get paid. So,
Mhm, mhm.
Gary.
So you've said there's a quote I want to read from you. You said it's a matter of when, not if. If a cyber attack slips past perimeter defenses, so they must have strategies. Companies must have strategies in place to respond to a successful breach quickly and effectively. It's a big question, of course, but what in a nutshell is that strategy?
Well, I think let's start by dissecting an attack, so to speak, and what happens. Well, there's a lot of things technically that happen, but if you just take a basic number here, 73 days is the average amount of time it takes to identify and contain a ransomware attack, right?
Mm.
That's a long time. And, in most of the worlds that we've lived in, where you think about infrastructure and data resilience and so forth, bank environment back up and running? How quickly can I get my retail environment back up and running? But in a cyber event, the reason why it takes 73 days is because you actually have a whole bunch of different functions within your organization that have to collaborate together to
Mm-hmm.
figure out what to do. And there's a lot of stress involved, right? You have executives that are wondering whether they're going to be held personally liable. You have lawyers that are wondering when
Mm-hmm.
and how they disclose information to the regulators.
Right.
You have insurers that are involved in this as well. So it becomes very, very complicated. The part of actually recovering the data as opposed to paying the ransom
Mm-hmm.
ends up being a very small part of it. It's really how you handle the response and all the stages in between. So, I think the strategy around building a cyber resilience plan comes simply by starting to think about what are you going to do proactively? What are the things you're going to put in place to understand where your critical data is, how you're going to monitor it, so on and so forth. And how are you preparing yourself so reactively you can go through those steps as quickly and efficiently as possible? That's sort of the 100,000-foot version of it, but obviously there's
Right.
many, many details under the covers.
So really, it's not simply a question of, well, buy this product, put it in place, and you're done. We're talking about a larger umbrella strategy going on, especially the proactive piece. Can you talk a little bit about that, the proactive part of that strategy? Any
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I'll share another data point that I think is very interesting for folks. If you look at ransomware attacks, I'd consider we're in sort of the third chapter of ransomware's evolution. You
Okay.
had the chapter one was about just going after your primary data infrastructure, encrypting it, holding it for ransom. The second was going after the backup infrastructure, knowing that that was the last line of defense.
Right.
The chapter we're in now, the third chapter, is really involving exfiltration, stealing the data.
Hmm.
And last year alone, 68% of ransomware attacks involved some form of exfiltration. They could have been a combination of different threats, but exfiltration was a big part of that. So, how do you start to think about better arming yourself to deal with an exfiltration-based attack? Well, there's a lot of things to your earlier point. It's not any one tool or any one product in here, but you start to think about what data governance things you could put in place. Can you actually look at the data and use surveillance to be able to actually understand sentiment of what's going on between users and systems and so on and so forth, and have that information enrich the insights that you're actually providing to your security tools that ultimately the decision makers are going to make a call on whether there's an event or an incident that's going on. That's an example of something proactively that you can do to start to stitch together a lot of things that most organizations have in some form. They're doing some level of data inventory. They're doing some level of archiving. They're doing some level of alerting and anomaly detection. But it's really bringing them together that is really needed.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the phrase data governance. I think it's one of those phrases that very few people find really thrilling. And my apologies to the data governance experts out there, but it's like, but the question is, it's so important. And so I'm wondering, is there a thought about data governance as a tip there? Like, what would you advise people on maybe bulking up their data governance?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not the sexiest word out there.
Right.
It's not the most compelling. But look, I think any organization I've talked to over the past 2 years, it's a board level conversation now because there are regulatory requirements, there are regional requirements all around data privacy, around how you're protecting your data, how you disclose information. So it's become a board level conversation. Not the sexiest things are always the things that may get the most attention, but there's certainly things that are really critical and important. So, recently in the latest NIST framework around cyber resilience that just came out, the 2.0 framework, they actually put data governance right in the center, or governance right in the
Uh-huh.
center of it. For
Okay.
exactly this reason, it's become so critical for organizations.
Mhm. Well, let's make sure we drill down to Veritas itself. I mean, how is Veritas addressing the security needs of its clients? What's the Veritas advantage?
Yeah, look, everyone out there, as you know, provides different elements to a cyber resilience solution. You have, security vendors that are focused on certain capabilities. You have backup vendors that are focused on others. What we do uniquely here is that I would put it in two categories. It's breadth and depth. So we have the depth to be able to cover your data protection, your data security, and your data governance needs, right? And not have to go to multiple vendors for that. And we have the breadth to be able to do that across pretty much any environment that customers have. Every customer out there is some form of hybrid multi-cloud, right? They have workloads that are private cloud in their data center. They have some that are in multiple public cloud environments. Some of them are virtualized. Some of them are in databases. Some of them are containerized. It's a mix. The reality is it's a mix out there. Mm-hmm. Having to require different tools for different workloads or different applications out there contributes to the sprawl that everyone is wrestling with. So again, back to what we do, we give one platform, one solution to be able to handle all those use cases across any of those workloads. It's really customer's choice at that point. So that's what makes us unique.
Well, I hear this image of cybersecurity in the enterprise level that there could be two worlds, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that the larger companies, I guess the small and medium companies really want a solution that's one size fits all because they don't want to be messing with a number of solutions, where the larger companies, some of the household names we know, they're willing to cobble together 10 or 12 different solutions because they want best of breed for each use. I'm not sure what my question is, but does that fit in the way you see things, or what kind of advice would you give to those companies that want to cobble together 10 or 12 best of breed?
Well, I think I take a step back and think about like the security space, the cybersecurity, cyber resilience, all the different use cases that exist there. Right. The foundation of those use cases is built on trust. And I think when it comes to trust and vendors, you have a choice. You can either build it all yourself, right? You can go to a single vendor, like you said, or you can put together the best of breed solution. And I think it's hard in this space, given how quickly it moves and how diverse the attack vectors are and how they're ever changing and so on and so forth. It's hard to put all your eggs in one basket because the level of trust, I think, is going to be hard to achieve. So in the end, right, it is a game of best of breed. And that's why, like, for folks like us, we're very focused on an open ecosystem approach, working with the best cyber companies out there together with our data capabilities, because that's what most customers have already bet on. And so, requiring them to go sort of full stack into some other solution just isn't going to fly. And I think even for mid-sized companies, the same holds true.
So really, it's and you've really talked about this. You said resilience is a team sport. No one vendor can solve an organization's entire cyber resilience challenge. So really, you're talking about a more open approach where you might incorporate some other vendors within an overall umbrella.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's part of our strategy is, to play well with others. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the ecosystem part, but then also integrate with solutions out there that are best of breed in their space. And it's the standard better together story, right? If we can better attack one of those exfiltration attacks by working together with another vendor out there, we're going to create a partnership around that and go and build those integrations. That's what our customers are looking for from us.
Well, I mean, just a kind of a straight question about the future and the future of data protection. Do you have a sense of, maybe this is really the big question, a sense of where it's going, or a milestone we might see, or something that's a couple of years off on the horizon, the future of data protection in the enterprise, and maybe how can someone prepare for it now? But what do you see looking ahead in terms of the years ahead, data protection in the enterprise?
Yeah, I hate to admit the number of years I've been in this space. But, people can guess, or they can look up my LinkedIn. But look, one of the things that is remarkable about this space is that it is a necessity. You can't go without protecting your data, right, in some form. Now, how you protect your data has evolved over time, whether it was back in the early days of client computing, or to the cloud, or hyper-converged, or so on and so forth. It will continue to evolve as new architectures emerge. But the necessity is still there. And so, if you look at the growth in this market, continues to be a growth market
Right.
for exactly that reason, because as data grows, of course, you need to protect more of that data. But where I think that leads you to is ultimately you need to leverage the smarts, the AI capabilities to be able to actually harness all of that data together, right? It just becomes untenable to do that at the scale that we're talking about. We have customers that are in the exabytes of data, right? Under one roof. You can't manage that on your own. You can't manage that even with scripts. You need systems and tools that are going to do that for you, that are predictive, all those sorts of things. So I think the future is all about creating an autonomous data management capability that starts to take the monotonous tasks and automates them, and then takes the best practices and turns them into recommendations and smart behaviors that can automatically be set. So that's clearly where we're headed.
It does seem inevitable. Absolutely. I would imagine there are many people agree with you on that. Matt, I think you said it. Fascinating. It's going to be a fascinating sector to follow in the years ahead. Thanks so much for talking with us, and please come back and chat with us again sometime.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, James.